I'm going to get to that Dave Aranda quote at some point, Jack, but I want to go to this first. This is from Max Olson. Every single time it seemed like I open up Twitter, and I'm not saying every single time because I'm on it a lot or I have it up, but about 3 times a day I open up Twitter, and whether it's Jeff Goodman or somebody who covers college basketball or Max Olson or somebody who covers college football, there's another transfer. And we had a big discussion about this yesterday, and Phil Bennett, among others, we discussed it with him as well. Max Olson. This was yesterday at 5:12 p.m. Kansas State linebacker Brandon Jennings is back in the transfer portal. Jennings transferred to Kansas State from Maryland earlier this offseason, and now he's back in the transfer portal. I know that everyone has a right to pretty much do everything but commit crimes, right?
Well, in some cases, that's actually been allowed as well.
Depends on what the hell. What's going on? I know we could discuss this. This could the same conversation 3 weeks ago, but this just caught me. This is probably old man get off my lawn. I get it.
I don't think it's old man get off my lawn as much as it's just one of those things that I think has come with like the modern world of this is the same kind of thing we have in recruiting where a guy can commit to 7 schools before he actually signs. It's part of it is.
Let me put up my list of 25 finalists to soak up all these Twitter likes.
So if you're going to do that, and I don't know if Brandon Jennings is this kind of guy, but it does. I mean, he has made a decision and then made another decision. It seems to me he didn't think it all the way through when he made that decision. So to go to Kansas State,
which one?
Well, at least to go to Kansas State.
Or go to Kansas State?
To leave Maryland. I mean, to go to Kansas State, if he doesn't like it that much, if he was already there, then he didn't look enough. He didn't go deep enough. And, it's not just it's your college choice. It's where you're going to be spending class time and all this other stuff. You better make sure you like it.
I mean, nobody's afforded more opportunities to check out their campuses than football players. Yeah. So I don't buy the whole didn't know what he was walking into. Like, if you did, we know guys on Baylor's roster who came sight unseen, and, look, that's a gamble. But, I don't think it's an old man yelling at clouds saying to kind of scoff at this. You're talking about a kid or a young man, I should say, who lasted 4 months. 4 months. I mean, this isn't him arriving as a freshman and then you getting homesick and he's like, I don't think this is for me. No, this is a guy who basically Maryland wanted gone because he was a diva, according to what I was reading, or at least there were some issues there. And diva was a word thrown around apparently by the Maryland staff. So there's that to begin with. But then, you go and, you get a second shot. You get your second shot. You get your second chance to go figure out where you want to play. And it lasts 4 months. So this isn't to me the system, or this isn't to me like the schools or whatever. This is a young man who needs to figure out what he actually wants to do. All this stuff we talk about with young people, and I'm not trying to be old man either, but it's always like, well, you don't understand. It's different than when you were growing up, and it's this and it's that and it's this and it's that. But at some point you got to say I don't care if he's 20 or if he's 22 or whatever. I was old enough then to know that I'm acting like a clown if I'm transferring that often, that quickly. That's on me. That's not the transfer portal. That's not playing time. That's not the coaches. That's you, young man. So figure it out.
And here's the thing. If you're a diva, Kansas State's not the place for you.
Well, because diva Maryland.
Maryland, too. Look, I'm telling you, if you're a diva, and coaches think they can coach things out of people. I'm sure Chris Kleiman and his staff thought, we can coach this thing out of him.
He's a really good player as a freshman. He was good before he got into whatever he was getting into, with the Maryland staff, and then that's what led to this, and then I don't know what happened to K-State. But
I think, it's clear, he got into a little bit of spring football here, and Chris Kleiman's a very, kind of baseline coach. I mean,
why don't we sit there and try to look at the solution here? The solution is not everything is free.
Exactly.
You have to, if you're going to open up this transfer portal that initially kind of seemed like a pretty good idea, and now it is so free agency, so wide open, you could transfer. Where's he going to end up? Somewhere else this summer? And then what about October? He's going to go somewhere else? Why don't they put a pitch count on this?
Well, that's when the person who just doesn't want any rules for anything says, well, why? And then you can ask why for forever. That's the great thing about asking why is you just keep asking it because it's never ending. But yeah, like I'm all for freedom to move around and things like that. I think it's just different fans. I think there's some college football fans that want it to be the NFL with no rules, and I think there's some fans that want it to be more like the college football they knew, and they know it can't be exactly like that. So the NIL thing was kind of a weird pill to swallow, but hey, it got down, and it turns out like the world didn't end. Everything's fine, and it's pretty much still, to an extent, college football, but it has turned into the nightmare that people thought it would be, with basically just going and buying players rather than doing it in the cover of darkness under the table, just doing it right out wide in the open and calling it a charity or whatever the case may be. So, there's people, why not? Why can't he? Why can't he bounce around? Well, I guess in theory he can, but, at some point I would hope that somebody in that young man's life or somebody with just half a brain who actually cares about him rather than just asking why on Twitter would say, yeah, you know what, maybe that's on him. Maybe he's the one that needs to sit down and figure it out and maybe mature a little bit. I don't know him, but I know that it's never commonplace for somebody to transfer twice in a 4-month period. Like that's red flags to me.
Well, Baylor had a guard in James Akinjo who was at Georgetown, then he was at Arizona, and then at Baylor. He always played well, but there was issues at Georgetown, and then at Arizona there was the coaching change. So there are some things that can, but that's a red flag to me. And he was a phenomenal player, All-American player, and I don't know where they would have been without him. But I always thought that the transfer portal would have some sort of, if you want to use the term, pitch count. That if you transfer once, that's fine. You get a free pass. You transfer twice, that's fine, but you have to sit out a year.
I agree. I was going to say the same thing. They used to be, they had that rule just in general. You did it once and you were sitting out a year, and I didn't necessarily agree with that because that does seem kind of harsh, but I'm with you. If you transfer twice in 4 months, you dock a year. I mean, there has to be some kind of culpability. I mean, there has to be some kind of not like it doesn't have to be viewed as a negative, but it just has a barrier to kind of keep the chaos from just completely enveloping everything.
I think stop for a second before they transfer in the first place.
So.
And I think that's the rule. I mean, the rule is one-time transfer, and then you have to sit out.
Yeah,
but he could also fall into several different categories, and then that rule is moot. So we don't know. We don't know what legal mumbo jumbo that Brandon Jennings could, or what rule he could fall into. He's probably going to have to sit out a year, but. Yeah. He could say I have this going on and I have to leave, and then then he's going to get to go play wherever he wants.
Well, I don't know how. I'm just curious because of course there's a one-time transfer rule, but if you were on campus for 4 months, I guess that's a full transfer. Yeah, so I guess he's docked no matter what.
I mean, he took classes.
Yeah, that's the way it should, and I agree with that. That's the way that it should be. We don't need to see him probably playing for at least, or we won't see him play for at least a year, and I don't know where he ends up. And again, I don't want to act like I'm harping on him. It's just kind of like a symptom of the overall larger problem, and that's why it's an interesting story. But I mean, good luck to him. I hope he figures out whatever is causing him to not be able to find where he wants to put his head at night. But it's kind of wild, this whole recruiting thing.
It's not so much about him. It's about the story, and it's about how he's not the only one, and what is the solution. And I do believe that they have to come up with something. But with the NCAA being so screwed up, this is on the conferences to come up with something, I guess, in what they can. Remember the SEC, you could not transfer from one school within the conference to the other. Well, that's now a green light. Speaking of which, Alabama added Tyler Steen, Vanderbilt offensive tackle. Bama lost both their tackles to the NFL. They do have a couple of young men, Kendall Randolph and Amari Kite, who are practicing during spring at that position. Steen was a starter at Vanderbilt. Baylor got a Vanderbilt transfer, right? He's a starter on the offensive line. And so it has from St. Aquinas of Florida, by the way, St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, where, of course, they basically have nothing but great talent that comes out of that area.
For a while there, Alabama was forbidden from coming on their campus because they fired Shula. Oh. And all the Shulas go there, and they fired one of the Shula, David Shula, I think. And the St. Thomas Aquinas was like, no, we're not going to talk to you, Dennis Francione, and all this stuff. And then Nick Saban comes along, and they're like, there's so many Shulas. Who knows? Who can keep track?
A couple of basketball notes. Mike Miles, who had a really nice run at TCU, said he's coming back for another year. And then across town, Kendrick Davis, the American Conference Player of the Year, from SMU entered the transfer portal, and you don't know, is he going to stay close? Is he going to move somewhere else? What's he going to do? But those are a couple of names in the state of Texas, in the Dallas and Fort Worth area. Miles coming back, Kendrick Davis saying that he's going to look at some other options.
I would be willing to bet you that
he's from Houston.
That Buzz Williams goes all in
on
at
Kendrick
Texas
Davis.
A&M on that, yeah.
Also, Luka Doncic, we mentioned that yesterday. They came